Comedy moment in the NBA season. Here we have some most comedy moments in NBA history. Big Shill. Throughout his career, Shaq has accomplished a great deal. He has won hearts with thundering dunks, he has released a platinum rap album, he has developed his own video game, and he has received a doctorate. Nevertheless, there is one thing that he has never done. He has never sold out. Regardless of how much money he stands to make, he will never put his name on a product. Nevertheless, in the extremely rare event that he has another edition of EJ's Neato Stat of the Night, he played a game in which Chuck and Kenny had to identify whether a product was one that Shaq sponsored or whether it was a fake. If you want to see the answers for yourself, I'll let you watch. Let's just say that the 15-time NBA All-Stars business endeavors fall across a wide variety of categories. In a photo finish, Kenny comes out on top, beating Chuck to the board. There is a good reason why people refer to Kenny as the Jet. He has the distinction of being the fastest player on the team, which also includes Charles Barkley, who is 65 years old, 7 feet and 1 inch tall, and weighs 350 pounds, as well as Charles Barkley, who has lovely feet. Because he nearly always emerges victorious in intense competitions, it would not come as a surprise to me if the board at Studio J in Atlanta is registered in his name. Sometimes, however, Shaq and Chuck will give him a run for his money. They will give him a run for his money. During the halftime break of Game 4 of the first-round NBA playoff series between the Miami Heat and the Atlanta Hawks, Barkley decided to go for it. As Kenny was putting the finishing touches on his piece, Chuck recognized a chance to defeat him with his own set of skills. The Jet was able to see straight through it, and it took off. Kenny came out on top in a race that was so close that losing by a fraction of a second was impossible. Whenever I see Barkley jogging, I can't help but laugh out loud. The challenge of the whisper. To those who are not familiar with the term, the Whisper Challenge is a competition in which participants put on headphones and attempt to read the lips of another individual while they are making a certain word or phrase. Jimmy Fallon, who is known as the king of keeping a straight face, has been responsible for making it popular throughout the years by doing it with guests on his show. During December of the previous year, the Inside Crew gave it a try. To beat Kenny and Chuck, Shaq and Ernie formed a partnership. The headphones were worn by Shaq and Chuck, while Ernie and Kenny were engaged in the activity of reading. In the end, Shaq achieved a perfect score of 10 out of 10, but we are still waiting for the veracity of his results because the location of his headphones may be in question. Also doing nicely was Chuck. When he won his first NBA title, he was very focused, and he was able to get the majority of the answers he needed. On the other hand, he did not utter the words "Roll Tide," as did any other Auburn alumnus. Following the Mavericks' advancement to the Western Conference Finals, Shaq dons a cowboy hat. The fact that the Dallas Mavericks defeated the Phoenix Suns in the semifinals of the Western Conference was a surprise in and of itself. Nevertheless, none anticipated the Mavericks' victory in Game 7 by a score of 33 points. During the post-game program, Shaq wore a black cowboy hat as a way of showing his appreciation for Luka Doncic and the Mavericks. The situation is not particularly specific. Regardless of the circumstances, the sight of Shaq donning a hat that is 20 times too small for him will always be humorous to me. Chuck's response. Zion Williamson, looks like me and Shaq had a baby. Have you ever pondered this question? What might the offspring of Shaq and Chuck look like? You need not look any further than Zion Williamson, the forward for the New Orleans Pelicans. The youthful phenom who reportedly went to training camp weighing 330 pounds and did not play at all this year warmed up for an early season game against the Phoenix Suns and appeared to be a little bit more muscular than he normally would have been. When Johnson was absent due to the passing of his son, host Adam Lefkoe, who was standing in for Johnson, questioned the crew about the reactions to the tape. Chuck remarked, "It appears that Shaq and I have a child together. Golden. Doppelgangers of the insiders and the insiders themselves." An EJ's Neato Stat of the Night episode that aired in the middle of the season brought back memories of a photograph that Kenny had seen in a barbershop that appeared to be Chuck. The social media team for NBA on TNT asked people for assistance in locating Sir Charles' doppelganger. Although they were unable to locate Sir Charles, their inquiry did uncover individuals who resemble him. The rest of the crew were also found to be similar to him. I believe that Ernie was a haired version of Alex Caruso, who I believe to be a D-list actor. Because he was so stunningly beautiful, Shaq was not convinced that he was Shrek. To put it another way, Kenny was a French bulldog that stood on his hind legs. Because Kenny's reveal was a callback to a fan tweet that was received into the program during the NBA bubble in the year 2020, the crew burst into laughs during the reveal. Attempts are made by Shaq to convince Hawk to attack Chuck. It would appear that Shaq spends his spare time engaging in the hobby of bird calling. When I found out that a hawk, duck, and eagle were not present in the studio during Shaq's squawks, I was taken aback. I was in the wrong. To achieve harmony with Shaq, A real-life hawk named Lobo, who was 47 years old, was brought onto the set. On the other hand, the big Aristotle was not going to let that happen, and he secretly made his way across to Chuck's side of the table to lure the hawk into landing on him. Although his strange call was not successful in attracting Lobo, it was nonetheless entertaining even though it was unsuccessful. The major that Charles Barkley pursued at Auburn. They played music and I said, I appreciate it. Throughout his time at Auburn University, Charles Barkley's primary focus was on his academic pursuits as a student. His major is appreciation of music performance. They played music and I said, I appreciate it, he explained to reporters. It is comforting to know that Chuck is among the majority of us who do not choose to work in the field in which they receive their degree. Chuck's math on gasoline. Not only is this the best segment that I have ever seen in my whole life, but it is also the best segment that has ever come from a sports broadcast. I cannot emphasize this concept enough. On March 7, 2022, Charlotte Wilder posted as follows. Have you ever refrained from acquiring a vehicle due to the gasoline mileage of the vehicle? If you don't want to pay a fortune to fill up your tank, you certainly don't want to have to travel to the gas station every time you go for a drive, do you? There's a remedy that Shaquille O'Neal can do for you. When Kenny Smith and Shaq were talking about purchasing a new car, Kenny Smith expressed his concern about the expense of filling the tank since it would be $80. Shaq suggested that when the tank is at half capacity, you should put in $20 to bring it back up to full capacity. Where's the logic? It is only when the tank is empty that you will spend $80. You'll be able to solve the problem so long as you continue to add $20 while the tank is only half full. After hearing this, Kenny responded by stating that he would continue to spend the same amount. When asked about the matter, Shaq reacted by stating that Kenny only had to fill up once every 2 weeks, which rendered the problem irrelevant. Even though our statistics and information department is still working out the arithmetic, the fact that Shaq was so adamant about his rationale made for some very remarkable entertainment. The facepalm belonging to Ernie Johnson was the icing on the cake. Enjoyed the action? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below to join the conversation.